The discovery. The South Pacific churned with unusual violence as the research vessel Hawking maintained its position against the strengthening current. Dr. Sarah Chin stood at the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing readings from 3 kilometers below. Something down there was emitting energy signatures unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. "Contact established with the anomaly," announced Dr. James Morrison, his fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "Energy output is, this can't be right. It's orders of magnitude beyond anything in our database." Sarah nodded, her short black hair framing a face weathered by years of deep-sea exploration. At 42, she had led more successful deep-sea archaeological expeditions than anyone in the field. But this discovery would eclipse everything else. "Launch the drone," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The Hawking's advanced deep-sea drone, affectionately named Nautilus, descended through the abyssal zone, its lights piercing the eternal darkness. The feed from Nautilus revealed a structure that defied explanation. Geometric patterns covered what appeared to be a metallic surface, but the metal itself seemed to shift and flow like liquid while maintaining its form. The structure extended beyond the drone's considerable sensor range. "It's definitely not natural," Sarah muttered, more to herself than to the crew. "And it's definitely not human." The discovery itself would have been extraordinary enough, but what happened next changed everything. As Nautilus approached the structure, the patterns began to glow with an inner light. A beam of energy shot from the surface, enveloping the drone in a field of shifting colors. Instead of destroying the drone, the energy field began transmitting data. The ship's computers struggled to process the incoming information, but what they could decode painted a terrifying picture. The structure was a weapon system, created by a species that had vanished millions of years ago. Its power was beyond comprehension, capable of reshaping reality itself. Before Sarah could fully process this revelation, the ship's communication officer interrupted. "Dr. Chen, we're picking up multiple objects entering Earth's atmosphere. They're not ours." High above, dozens of ships of unknown design pierced the cloud cover. Their hulls gleamed with the same shifting patterns as the underwater structure. Humanity's isolation in the universe had ended, but not by choice. "Get me a secure line to the UN Security Council," Sarah ordered, her mind racing with implications. "And download everything we can from that structure. Something tells me we're going to need it." As the alien ships descended, Sarah realized humanity had stumbled upon something that would either ensure their survival or hasten their extinction. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on her shoulders like the ocean above the ancient weapon. The next 48 hours became a blur of activity. Military vessels from every major nation converged on their location. The alien ships maintained their position in high orbit, silent but watchful. Sarah worked tirelessly to decode more of the transmitted data, each revelation more disturbing than the last. The weapon hadn't been hidden under Earth's oceans by accident. It had been placed there as a fail-safe, a last resort for any civilization that discovered it. But the price of its power was steep, using it would fundamentally alter both the wielder and their reality. In her quarters, Sarah studied the preliminary translations. The aliens in orbit were called the Nexus Collective, a species that had dedicated millennia to finding and controlling these weapons. They weren't the only ones searching. Another species, the Meridians, had been trying to prevent the weapons from being used. The data was clear on one point: humanity's discovery of the weapon had set in motion events that could not be stopped. Earth had become the centerpiece of a conflict that spanned galaxies. A soft chime interrupted her studies. "Dr. Chen to the bridge," the intercom announced. "We're receiving a transmission from the aliens." Sarah took a deep breath, straightened her jacket, and headed for the bridge. Whatever happened next would determine the fate of humanity. She only hoped they were ready for what was coming. The message waiting on the bridge would shatter everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe, and force her to make decisions that would echo through history. The game had begun, and Earth was the board. The Alliance. The holographic message hung in the center of the UN Security Council chamber, its alien script rotating slowly as translators worked to decode it. Sarah stood before the assembled representatives, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "The Meridians are offering us protection," she explained, pointing to specific sections of the message. "They claim they've been monitoring Earth for centuries, waiting for us to discover the weapon. They want to prevent the Nexus Collective from acquiring it." General Helena Santos of the Brazilian Space Command leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the hologram. "And we're supposed to trust them? For all we know, they could be worse than the Collective." The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments until a new figure emerged from the shadows. Tall and willowy, with silver skin that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways, the Meridian ambassador moved with fluid grace. "We do not ask for trust," the ambassador spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the human's teeth vibrate. "We offer proof." The ambassador raised a crystalline device, and the chamber's holographic display transformed into a three-dimensional recreation of historical events. It showed the Nexus Collective's rise to power, their systematic destruction of civilizations that refused to submit, and the Meridians' long struggle to protect emerging species. Sarah watched the faces of the human leaders as they absorbed the implications. The Meridians had been preparing humanity for this moment, subtly guiding their technological development while maintaining their independence. "The weapon beneath your ocean," the ambassador continued, "is not merely a tool of destruction. It is a key to understanding the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. The Collective seeks to use it to force all sentient life into a single, unified consciousness under their control." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The patterns she'd been studying weren't just a weapon's blueprint, they were a map of consciousness itself. "We've detected collective ships entering the solar system," General Santos announced, her cybernetic eye flashing red. "Multiple vectors, at least 30 vessels larger than anything we've ever built." The Meridian ambassador turned to Sarah. "Dr. Chen, you've already begun to understand the weapon's true nature. Your species has something we've observed in few others, the ability to think both linearly and laterally, to combine logic with intuition. This is why the weapon revealed itself to you." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The data she decoded, the strange ways the pattern seemed to respond to human brainwave patterns, it all made sense. "We need to move quickly," she said, addressing both the human leaders and the Meridian ambassador. "The weapon's location is compromised. The Collective will attempt to retrieve it by force." The next 12 hours transformed human civilization. Meridian ships emerged from hidden positions throughout the solar system, their organic-looking vessels taking up defensive positions around Earth. Human military forces were rapidly integrated with Meridian defense systems, their weapons upgraded with technology that had been waiting for this moment. Sarah worked alongside Meridian scientists, their knowledge complementing her intuitive understanding of the weapons systems. The patterns that had seemed abstract began to coalesce into a coherent theory, one that suggested the weapon wasn't designed to destroy, but to transform. Deep beneath the Pacific, the ancient structure continued to pulse with energy. Each emission carried more data, more understanding. The Meridians explained that the weapon's creators had seeded similar devices throughout the galaxy, waiting for species worthy of their legacy. But even as humanity and the Meridians prepared their defenses, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The patterns within the weapon's data structure seemed to hint at possibilities beyond either human or Meridian understanding. In her temporary lab aboard the Meridian flagship, Sarah studied the latest data streams. The weapon's response to human consciousness was unique. It wasn't just transmitting information, it was adapting, evolving. Something about human neural patterns was catalyzing changes in the ancient system. A sudden alert interrupted her research. The Collective's fleet had accelerated, their weapons charging. The final confrontation was about to begin, and humanity's alliance with the Meridians would face its first true test. As battle stations sounded throughout Earth's combined fleet, Sarah made a discovery that would change everything. The weapon wasn't just responding to human consciousness, it was responding to human creativity, to their ability to imagine possibilities beyond the obvious. And in that realization lay the seed of either salvation or destruction. The betrayal. Admiral Marcus Chen stood before the combined Earth Meridian Defense Council, his pristine uniform bearing both human and alien insignia. Sarah felt a chill as her uncle spoke, something in his familiar voice suddenly seeming foreign. "The Meridians aren't telling us everything," Marcus declared, his hands clasped behind his back. "Our deep space sensors have detected energy signatures matching the weapon's frequency, not just on Earth, but throughout our solar system." The Meridian ambassador's silver skin rippled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as concern. "That's impossible. The weapon is unique." "Is it?" Marcus interrupted, activating a holographic display. "Or have you been lying to us?" The display showed dozens of signal points throughout the solar system, each pulsing with the same otherworldly energy as the underwater structure. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. "They're not weapons," she whispered, the patterns finally clicking into place. "They're nodes in a network." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The Nexus Collective's fleet had suddenly changed formation, but not to attack. They were creating a geometric pattern in space, one that matched the ancient markings perfectly. "Now you understand," Marcus said, his voice transforming into something inhuman. His skin began to shift, revealing the chrome-like surface of a Nexus Collective infiltration unit. Humanity was never meant to be merely allies. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Security forces, both human and Meridian, converged on Marcus, but he activated something that sent waves of disruptive energy through the station. The Meridian ambassador collapsed, their silver skin turning dull gray. Sarah ran. Not from fear, but because she finally understood what the weapon's data had been trying to tell her. The patterns weren't a weapon's blueprint, they were a test. And humanity had been taking it for millions of years without knowing. As she raced through the station's corridors, the truth assembled itself in her mind. The ancient civilization hadn't hidden weapons around the galaxy. They'd created a vast neural network, waiting for a species with the right combination of traits to activate it. The Nexus Collective hadn't come to steal the weapon. They'd come to harvest humanity. "Lock down all command functions," she shouted into her comm unit. "The Collective has infiltrators throughout the fleet. They're not just mimicking our forms, they're copying our consciousness." But it was already starting. Throughout Earth's defense fleet, sleeper agents revealed themselves. The Collective had spent years preparing for this moment, placing infiltration units in key positions throughout human society. The Meridian ambassador, recovering from the energy pulse, caught up with Sarah. "We didn't lie about protecting humanity," they said, their voice weak. "We just didn't know what we were protecting you from. The Collective doesn't want to destroy consciousness, they want to harvest it, to use human creativity and intuition to complete the network." Sarah's mind raced. The underwater structure, the nodes throughout the solar system, the Collective's geometric formation, it was all part of a vast calculation. Human consciousness was the final variable in an equation started millions of years ago. In the space battle above, human ships began firing on each other as more infiltrators revealed themselves. The Meridian vessels tried to maintain order, but the Collective's plan had been too well orchestrated. Sarah reached her laboratory, her fingers flying over the controls. The weapon's patterns had been trying to warn them. Human consciousness had evolved in a unique way, not just through logic or instinct, but through imagination, through the ability to see patterns and possibilities that even the network's creators hadn't envisioned. "They don't want to destroy us," she told the Meridian ambassador. "They want to use us to evolve themselves. The network isn't a weapon, it's an evolutionary algorithm. And we're the key to solving it." A massive energy surge from the Collective's fleet illuminated the solar system like a new sun. The network was activating, and humanity's consciousness hung in the balance. In that moment, Sarah realized that the true battle wouldn't be fought with ships and weapons. It would be fought in the space between thoughts, in the quantum realm where consciousness itself took form. And humanity's greatest strength, their imagination, would be tested against the cold logic of the collective's unified mind. The resistance. The neural network pulsed across the solar system, each node lighting up like a star. Sarah worked frantically in her lab aboard the damaged station, her mind racing faster than her hands could move. Around her, reality itself seemed to waver as the collective's consciousness began to interface with the ancient system. "They're trying to force an evolutionary leap," Sarah explained to the remaining human Meridian leaders through a secured quantum channel. "But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Human consciousness isn't just a tool, it's a wild card." Dr. Maya Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum consciousness researcher, joined the conversation from her hidden facility in the Atacama Desert. "The latest readings confirm it. The collective isn't just copying our forms, they're trying to replicate our neural patterns, our ability to think creatively." Sarah pulled up the original patterns from the underwater structure. "Look at this. The network wasn't designed to force evolution. It was designed to test if a species was ready for it. The collective is trying to skip billions of years of natural development." Across Earth and throughout the fleet, humans began reporting strange experiences. Dreams became more vivid, more connected. People started sharing thoughts without speaking. The network was affecting human consciousness, but not in the way the collective had planned. "They thought they could harvest our creativity," Sarah said, a plan forming in her mind. "But creativity can't be forced. It has to be free." The Meridian ambassador, still weakened from the earlier attack, moved closer to Sarah's display. "Our species spent millennia trying to understand these structures. We thought we were protecting humanity from them. Instead, we should have been learning from you." Sarah initiated a new scan of the network's patterns, this time looking not at the individual nodes but at the spaces between them. Human consciousness evolved through chaos, through millions of years of survival, art, dreams, and imagination. We don't just think, we feel, we create, we imagine impossible things and then make them real. A massive tremor shook the station as the collective ships tightened their formation. The geometric pattern they formed began to pulse with energy that bent light itself. "They're trying to force a synchronization," Maya reported, her voice tight with urgency. "If they succeed, they'll rewrite every human consciousness to match their unified pattern." But something unexpected was happening. As the collective attempted to impose their order on human minds, humanity's chaotic creativity began to infect their unified consciousness. The very trait they tried to harvest was turning against them. Sarah's display showed the pattern spreading through the network. Human dreams, hopes, fears, and imaginings cascaded through the ancient system. Art, music, poetry, the full spectrum of human creativity flowed through circuits designed to process pure logic. The network isn't just measuring our ability to think, Sarah realized. It's measuring our ability to transcend thought itself. To imagine what could be instead of just what is. Around Earth, humans began to instinctively link their minds, not in the rigid pattern the collective sought, but in a flowing, ever-changing dance of consciousness. The Meridians watched in awe as their allies demonstrated an ability they had never imagined possible. The collective ships began to show signs of distress. Their perfect geometric formation wavered as human creativity infected their unified mind. Infiltrator units throughout the fleet started to malfunction, overwhelmed by the complexity of the consciousness they had tried to copy. "They wanted our creativity," Sarah said, watching the cascade effect spread through the network. "But they didn't understand that real creativity requires freedom. You can't control it. You can't harvest it. You can only set it free and see what happens." As the battle for consciousness reached its peak, Sarah made one final discovery in the ancient patterns. The network's creators hadn't seeded the galaxy with weapons or tests. They had created something far more profound, a way for species to transcend their physical limitations. But only if they could prove they were ready. The final confrontation wouldn't be one with weapons or technology. It would be one with stories, with dreams, with the infinite possibilities that existed in the human mind. And as Sarah prepared to implement her desperate plan, she realized that humanity's greatest strength had never been in their tools or their technology. It had been in their ability to imagine a better future, and then make it real. The resolution. The solar system blazed with consciousness. Streams of human thought, dreams, and imagination flowed through the ancient network, transforming it from a rigid geometric pattern into a living, breathing tapestry of minds. Sarah stood at the heart of it all, her consciousness expanded through the network, experiencing the full spectrum of human creativity. Through the quantum link, she felt billions of minds working together, not in the forced uniformity the collective sought, but in a harmonious chaos that defied description. Every story we've ever told, she broadcast through the network, her thoughts reaching every human mind connected to the system. Every song we've sung, every dream we've dreamed, they're all part of what makes us human. And they can't be controlled or copied. They can only be shared. The collective's fleet hung in space, their ships trembling as human consciousness overwhelmed their unified mind. The infiltrator units throughout Earth's defense forces began to change, their chrome surfaces rippling as they experienced something entirely new, individual thought. Dr. Maya Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. The network is stabilizing, but not like anything we've seen before. It's evolving. And it's taking us with it. The Meridian ambassador, their silver skin now pulsing with iridescent patterns, approached Sarah's physical form in the laboratory. We see it now. Your species wasn't meant to be harvested or controlled. You were meant to teach. Through the network, Sarah watched as the collective's rigid consciousness began to fragment, not into chaos, but into something new. The very creativity they had tried to steal was transforming them, teaching them what they had forgotten over millennia of forced unity. They weren't evil, Sarah realized, feeling the collective's consciousness change. They were stuck. They chose unity over creativity, certainty over possibility. They forgot how to dream. The ancient network pulsed with new energy as human imagination flowed through it. Art appeared in quantum space, sculptures of light, symphonies of thought, poems that existed in dimensions beyond human perception. The network's creators had built a canvas, waiting for a species that could paint with consciousness itself. Across Earth, humans began to understand their role in the galaxy. They weren't meant to be soldiers or victims or even allies. They were meant to be teachers, showing other species how to balance unity with individuality, logic with creativity, reality with dreams. The collective ships began to transform, their rigid geometric patterns flowing into organic shapes that reflected their newly awakened creativity. The infiltrator units, instead of copying human forms, started creating their own, expressing their newfound individuality. This is what the network's creators wanted, Sarah broadcast, her consciousness expanding further. Not a weapon, not a test, but a bridge. A way for species to share not just knowledge, but ways of thinking, ways of dreaming. The Meridians, who had spent millennia studying the network, finally understood their own role. They hadn't been meant to protect humanity from the network, but to preserve them until they were ready to teach others how to use it. As the crisis peaked, Sarah initiated the final sequence, not through the computer systems or the ancient technology, but through pure imagination. She showed the collective how to dream, how to create, how to see possibilities beyond the obvious. The solar system itself seemed to hold its breath as billions of minds, human and alien, joined in a moment of pure creation. The network blazed with new life, not as a weapon or a tool, but as a canvas for consciousness itself. When it was over, when the light faded and the mind settled, everything had changed. The collective ships hung in space, no longer threatening but transformed. The infiltrator units stood with humans and Meridians, each one now an individual, each one learning to create. Sarah opened her eyes in the laboratory, tears streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We showed them how to dream." The network hummed with new purpose, ready to share humanity's gift with the galaxy. Not through force or control, but through stories and songs, through art and imagination, through all the beautiful chaos that made consciousness worth preserving. And in deep space, on worlds yet undiscovered, other species looked up at their skies and began to dream new dreams, guided by the light of human creativity shining through the ancient network, teaching the galaxy how to imagine again.